Hi everyone, welcome to Reading Under the Covers, a romance novel podcast. I'm Suzanne, and with me today I have
Francesca.
and we also have a special guest today as well. So if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Cheyenne. I do a bookstagram called Read with Shy. I've been doing this now for like 4 or 5 years. It really flies by so fast, but definitely the community has changed a lot, but still having just as much fun.
Yeah, it certainly has. Yeah.
Yeah, in the last 5 years, changed quite a bit. Technology cropping up all the time, like new platforms.
Yes.
It's exciting. So today we're doing a really exciting topic, I think. I'll go into it a little bit more, but in the UK where I live last week, it was really freaking hot, like summery weather, and I had, I guess, some stupidly aspirational plans to sit down with a cold drink and maybe read my book. It was quite light after my little girl had gone to bed, though. I could have sat outside in my garden, which I had done. So all my flowers were everywhere. That isn't what happened, but that is a summer activity that I love to do. So is there any like summery things that you guys, I mean, I don't know how hot it is where you are, or any summery things you're planning to do or really want to do or have maybe already done. So, Francesca?
So for me, I love to sit outside. I have a balcony and I love to sit outside and read. Ideally, aspirationally, I would like to make some homemade fruit juice, but that usually doesn't happen. And at least where I'm at, it's really humid right now. So the thought is there, and I open the door and I'm like, oh, no, that's right. I can't survive out here. And I close the door and I go back inside. So
And if you really want to
Yes.
get aspirational, the person bringing you your fruit juice would have popped out of a romance novel,
well, this is true.
have a beautifully sculpted a beard and like an 8-pack to bring it to you as well.
Would not
No,
complain.
no.
That's definitely not happening.
No, but I mean, to be honest, if some random man, no matter how gorgeous they were, suddenly popped up in my house, I might not quite like it. What about you, Cheyenne?
I live in Texas, so just about the only thing you can do in the summer around here is sweat to death. We do have a pool, so my plans for the summer are to just read out by the pool and in the pool. I have some aspirations for new skills and hobbies this summer that don't necessarily take place outside, but like I want to learn how to quilt. So I bought a sewing machine
No.
and I signed up for Pilates classes. So I'm doing that twice a week. Yeah, I have a lot of plans for this summer. Will I accomplish any of them? I don't know, but I'm going to work my way towards it.
Yeah,
Sounds good. I used
that's
to
the
do
best we can
quilting.
hope.
I used to do quilting and it sounded like it would be really zen, but I was just bad at it, so it just used to stress me out.
I know it's a lot of math because you have
Yeah.
to measure the
Right.
seams and the fabric pieces and everything else, but I think that we've come such a long way technology wise that I don't think it needs to rely on me for the most part to do said math. So
Yeah.
that's why I feel more comfortable. Because you can literally buy the packs of fabric now that are like
Yeah.
pre-cut for you to make a 4 square quilt or whatever. So I feel like I can take myself out of the equation somewhat.
Yeah. 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 Hopefully you'll find it more chill than I than I ever
I
did. I
hope so.
gave
I
up
hope
then.
so.
Yeah, I gave
I
up
don't I
then.
don't need one more thing to rage about.
Another aspiration, which is more fun, I'd just like to go to a water park and splash about. There aren't that many in the
Yes.
UK, but that sounds like
Yeah.
fun. I mean, I won't, but that would be cool. Let out
Yeah.
my inner child.
Yeah. Most of mine are like when you reduce the peopling, that's the ones that I would choose to do. It's like, no, that's too peoply out there.
Uh-huh. I don't think we have a water park anywhere close to me, which is odd. Would you want to do an indoor or an outdoor water park?
Oh, in the UK, I suppose it would have to be. indoor. That way you're not entirely reliant
On
on
the
what the
weather.
weather's like. So,
Yeah.
that
True.
would be fun. Just go. I don't mind the people because I'm really good at just ignoring people. It doesn't matter how many people are there. But that doesn't feel like it's in my future, but one day.
Fingers crossed for you.
So, our bookish subject for today is vintage authors. And by vintage authors, we mean kind of like the, I guess, classics, the classic authors. I'm not going to say that started romance, but like really helped it develop along the way. Some of them are still writing, some of them aren't. We wanted to give some appreciation for like those vintage authors out there and talk about some of the ones that we like or we liked when we read it. Discuss maybe like as times have changed or what we have in our books have changed and would we perhaps want to reread, and then which ones we would reread will be quite interesting. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about with Cheyenne today. So Francesca, I don't know if you want to go a bit into like where the problems might lie with some of these vintage authors, and not, it's not the authors. The problem isn't the author. The problem is like what was acceptable at the time and the
Yeah,
content of the
it was
book.
just the times.
Yeah, we're not saying that these people are awful. So just to clarify that.
Yeah, it was just a sign of the times. A lot of things were acceptable or common, and that's what you can find in a lot of the more vintage romance books. And obviously, that was the evolution that was needed in the genre. We had to go through all of those to get to what we have today, which is exciting. I personally haven't read a ton of the real vintage classics, and the ones that I have read didn't really have those elements of problematic things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's because I came to reading romance a little bit later in life and already knowing a little bit more about, I didn't want to read those books that had rape in them or the forced seduction, I guess was called. I didn't have that experience. I'm curious to see what you guys had with reading those types of books and at what point you started reading them. If you're still reading them now, is that something that like takes you out of the story, or how you deal with that? Obviously, even reading some stuff that was written like in the early 2000s, it still has plenty of that. So at least with that, I do have some experience, and I definitely know that there are some books that if I were to read them right now, I know that there was probably something that was problematic and I would never want to reread it to not ruin my experience. And at the same time, I would never want to recommend those books to someone.
No.
Which ones are some that like stand out for you guys that you know would be something that you would not necessarily recommend for that, or, you know, maybe you would give a warning going into?
I also came to reading romance late. Up until like 2 or 3 years ago, I think I was mainly reading new adult romance, which is problematic in a lot of its own ways. I will throw that caveat out there, but I have started to branch out a lot more into like books written in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. I'm a big fan of that saying of like, I said this was my favorite book, but I never said that it was good. Where it's like you had the time of your life while you're reading it, but it's not something that you would generally recommend for other people. Those are my favorite types of books. I
love that.
Definitely don't read things with the idea of like, oh, you know, I think if I read this, I think it would be a good one to recommend to people. That's not how I read things. And this is probably going to make me sound a little crazy, but I genuinely like those books that are a little bit problematic, because some of those tropes I actually like. Like I read one last summer on vacation, Vixen by Jane Feather. It is a Guardian Ward plotline, and the Ward is 17 and the Guardian is like 35. And do I know that's gross? Yes. Was it one of the most entertaining books I read last year? Also, yes. I don't need my fiction all the time to be like perfectly politically, you know, correct for me to enjoy it. So I like when I find those like books written in 1992, and you can clearly tell that it was written in 1992.
Yeah.
I just enjoy those.
I also don't need them to be like 100% politically correct. There's things that obviously, as a person that are wrong, but I can still enjoy the story as long as it's not going into and everybody has this is my hard limit of where I think it would stop for me. What about you, Suzanne?
Yeah.
I know you're probably sitting there itching.
No, because I have read, or I did do in around 2010, 2011. I was reading a lot of these books, and at the time I was like, oh gosh, this heroine is 17 and the hero is 10, 15, 20 years older than her, but I still like glommed them all up.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember going through a phase of reading nothing but Julie Garwood, and like she's got a load of Scottish led young English bride, or something along those lines. And yeah, I really enjoyed them. I really liked them. Whether I could read them now or not, because even at the time I was like, I am enjoying this, but yikes, kind of thing.
Yeah.
What does this say about me?
Yeah.
Sometimes you question that.
Yes.
Yeah. And they all had that heroines were all I'm different from other girls trope a bit as well. Something that I struggle with, because a lot of the time they made like the heroine stand out from the other girls by making those other girls truly terrible in some way or another. And unless one of the females were going to be a heroine in another book, and I didn't enjoy that, but I still read them. I still read a lot of Julie Garwood. I've read so much Johanna Lindsey, and I think everyone at one point in their life needs to read the craziness of a Johanna Lindsey book. Like, I mean, they're absolutely mad, but yeah, and problematic in lots of ways, but like I just loved them, and I still love them, but I probably wouldn't ever read it again because I want to continue to love them.
Memories, yes,
Yeah,
from afar.
yeah, because I've got much harsher in my judgments as I've got older. That shouldn't stop anyone else, because that's just me. I mean, Francesca can attest I've got a pretty hard line for stuff that a lot of other people don't have. So you should still read a Johanna Lindsey. If nothing else, it's an interesting read to see like how this emergence of feminism has changed like authors and the way they write masculinity and femininity and like what that means. Like it's an interesting study in how that's changed. So yeah,
I think more than anything, I have probably got more lenient about what I will read in books. I think when I started, especially when I started book reviewing specifically, I was very much looking for things to be critical about, if that makes sense. So I would be like, yeah, I enjoyed this book, but I'm only going to give it 3 stars because it was written in 1988 and the hero like shakes the heroine when they're arguing, even though I love that now. Like when I read books about it now, I'm like, yes, shake her. And now I'm like, again, I love this book. There are things wrong with it. I still enjoyed reading it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But I have become very like, this book was written in 88. I don't know, what else was I expecting? Yeah. And now I kind of like look for those almost. I just like, there's the sign of the times. Like when you're reading it, it feels like you're watching like a made-for-TV Lifetime movie or something, and those are the vibes that I like from my books now.
Yeah.
I want them to seem like I'm transported into 1990.
Which genre do you think you gravitate more towards when you're looking at those more vintage books?
It has been romantic suspense a lot.
Ooh.
Yes. So reading, like, I read a Kay Hooper last summer too. That was so oddly good. Like, I also like books that have multiple point of views. Like, it's written in third person, omniscient almost, where every chapter is kind of like the different family member. I love those books because you kind of get to see this whole like family dynamic experience, so I like those. I am reading a Linda Howard right now. And so I'm excited for that. I read some of her books last summer too. I read one that Lubna from Romance Library gave me a rec for, After the Night. I think it was written in like the very early 90s, but it is like that book that you love, but it is literally so problematic. Like, he is so mean to her at every turn. He tries to run her out of town, like the grabbing on the shoulders and the shaking.
Yeah.
It is everywhere that you turn, there's like a little thing in that book that's like, I don't like that. But that book was good, and I still think about it. Just stuff like that. I do. Historical romance is great, but for me, I almost find like sometimes the plot lines aren't enough to keep my interest, which is why I like romantic suspense a lot, because you have the romance and the mystery going at the same time. There's always something to follow. Whereas sometimes just your standard romance gets a little like muddled in the middle for me, if that makes sense. I need something to like be carrying me along the whole way.
Yeah, something to propel the plot forward. I mean,
Yes.
all the older ones I've read are pretty much exclusively historical romance. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there are any that aren't, and I don't think they are. Even the Linda Howard book that I've read is like one of her new, well, it's probably not new now actually, but it's newish, last 5 years. So it hasn't got that problematic edge.
I like Amanda Quick too. Her stuff is
Amanda Quick.
the couple older ones I've read from her are not very problematic.
No.
But she always, you can tell that she's an author that writes like 1,000 different genres, because her books are always kind of like intermingled genres with everything else, you know? So I like her historical romances a lot, because there is almost always like a paranormal-y plot line or a mystery plot line. She's really good
Sometimes
at like
both,
blending them all
like,
together. Yes.
Yeah, is it her alchemy? It's got like an alchemy series or something. I remember reading those. So yeah, so there are some non-problematic ones, but an Amanda Quick, aka Jane Ann Krantz, is one of those.
Slash
Yeah, I love
Jane
those. I love
Castle.
Amanda Quick.
Jane Castle too.
Yeah,
Jane
she's
Castle.
got a lot of pen names.
I
I
really
know, it's
want to
hard to
read an
keep
Amanda
track.
Quick book now.
I like
I
her.
remember
She's
that.
kind of like my go-to for when I want to read something that I think it's her writing the most that I enjoy. You know how you have those authors where like you can read kind of any of their books and you enjoy it because you just like the way that they write things.
Yeah.
I feel that way about Sophie Lark too. She's, a new author, but every time I read her books, I just enjoy them, kind of like regardless of what's going on. Amanda Quick is like that for me.
Yeah. I think that the only one that is like that for me, of more vintage author, which obviously she's still writing now, is Nora Roberts, especially the In Death series. You can really tell that some of the things are dated in the books, but it has nothing to do with anything problematic or anything with the writing. It's more like if she mentions technology, for example. So you're like, oh, well, yeah, we don't have that anymore. So like that's the only reason where you can tell that one of her books is more dated. But I feel like she was really ahead of her times in terms of not putting anything problematic, like her heroes or her characters and the plots and the stories, that they would be perfectly fine if they were released today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those I really enjoy.
Yeah. Lisa Kleypas has some older titles as well, which, I mean, they're not as polished as her newer books.
She's going through them now, so they will be polished.
No, there's
I
nothing.
would argue that even some of her newer books have things that make me go, like I read, oh my gosh, what was it? Devil in Spring, like 2 years ago. And I'm like, and I had the same complaint about that book as I did when I read
Is that the
Vixen
one where the
last
heroine
summer.
gets stuck in the sofa at the beginning of the book?
Yes, I think so, yes. And she creates like board games. And I'm like, Lisa, my lady, why must you write her as though she's a 12-year-old? Like, I don't want to root for her to have a romance when she acts like she's 12 years old. That's the line that I draw. Like, I'm okay with the heroine being 17, but I need her to act like an adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
She needs to be a mature 17-year-old.
Yes, thank you. Yes. I don't want her like having a literal tantrum. I need her to be, she can be upset, but I need her to be an adult about things.
Yeah. I see, I didn't get that vibe from that book, but it has been a while since I've read it.
It was the only thing I disliked. Otherwise, it was a really great book. I
Yeah.
like the way that she writes. But I was like, why does she have to act like that?
Christ, I'm going to have to write all these things down that I now want to read.
Well, I know for sure I need to read more like classic romantic suspense because that's something that I really love and I feel like I haven't read enough of. Have you read Suzanne Brockman?
Yes, The
I have.
Troubleshooters.
Troubleshooters, yeah.
Ooh, okay. I have a few of her books on my bookshelf, I think. I look for those like, my favorite is when I find a book at a bookstore and I scan it on Goodreads and it only like 3 people have it shelved. And I'm like, this is the book for me. I like those ones that nobody's ever heard of. Which is good for me because you can go to a used bookstore and find a lot of romantic suspense from like the 80s and 90s that just nobody's ever heard of before.
The Susan Brockman ones were quite popular.
Yeah.
Gosh, I remember them being really intense. I never finished the series because I don't quite, even the great romantic suspense I like, it still doesn't really propel me to read many more of them, if you know what I mean. It just doesn't quite click with me. I was going to ask, have you read Black Ice by Anne Stewart?
Oh, you have to read Anne Stewart.
I haven't, yeah, I mean, I second that, but I like her historicals by surprise.
I think I've read Black Ice.
Black Ice is a romantic suspense, and it's like, if I've got the book right, which I think I do, is that he's like an assassin and he is basically a psychopath. He has no feelings apart from, it's a morality chain one, so he only cares about the heroine. Like, that's the only person that he cares about. Anyone else is fair game.
And then it's I think like the setting was something like a kind of like a house party or something. I didn't write a review, but I gave it 4 stars. So
I think I have that one like tagged for me at the library because Romance Library
it's May
recommended that
2005,
one a
so
long time ago too.
I'm like, it's not that old, and then I realised actually it is. But yeah, I've heard so many good things about it. I just never got round to it.
I mean, pretty much anything Anne Stewart writes, I've enjoyed. So
her Wicked House of Rowan series.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
I love that. I love that series so hard. I reread the entire series last year, I think, or maybe the year before.
If you want morally grey,
yeah,
kind of anti-hero,
which normally
stories.
I don't. If I'm honest, normally I don't want that. But you know, it's just such a compelling.
They're so good. They're so good.
I kind of like the heroines in it more than the heroes in that series, especially the first book, which is my favourite book.
Yeah, I think my favourite was the second in that House of Rowan, Breathless.
Where
So good.
Well, apparently Black Ice is having a revival because there are 14 people waiting for the copy at the library.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yes.
It's a hot book right now.
I think it's got a new cover too. Maybe that's why.
I was going to say, has it got a new
nice.
cover? The newest one I could see is 2018. That's 6 years ago. That's still pretty.
The one that I see on my library is from 2023.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Good for Anne Stewart.
What are your standouts if you had to recommend like 2 or 3 from a couple of subgenres that you have enjoyed the most? What would you say are your favorites? Authors or books, it can be either.
You know, one of the authors that I have started reading this year is Joanna Wayne. And she is also not well known. She writes a lot of Harlequin. She still does. She writes Harlequin like New Orleans set books. And that's one of those like, you know, locations / subtrope things that I like a lot is New Orleans based books. So I actually read one of her books a few years ago and I still think about it, called Alligator Moon. Was written in the 90s. It literally reads like you're watching a Lifetime movie. And it was so enjoyable. I loved it so much. Vixen from Jane Feather, I complained about the heroine being acting too young, but I really did enjoy that book. It was really good. Linda Howard, I read her Blair Mallory duology last summer, and they are romantic suspense. They were written in the early 2000s, and they read like it. They're not, I wouldn't necessarily call them problematic, but they read like you're watching an early 2000s rom-com. So they were really fun. Jennifer Cruz, is it Jennifer Cruz or Jennifer Cruzy?
I think it's Cruz.
I've heard
at
it
least I
pronounced
say Cruz,
Cruz,
but I've
yeah.
also heard it pronounced the other way.
Yeah.
Sure.
I listened to her book Bet Me earlier this year, and it was so good. It was so good. So I'm kind of working through her stuff too. But those like late 90s, early 2000s books, really across any genre, have just been so enjoyable for me. I like when they reference technology and when they don't, because you can tell the books from like the 80s and 90s that are contemporary or romantic suspense, they don't have cell phones. And it adds literally so much to the story, you know, that they're like not texting all the time, or that they have to go home and call so and so. Like those things add to the story in a way that we don't get in, you know, recent books anymore. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, I have to say I also enjoy that. It's like nostalgia.
The Dresden Files, the first one, and like it talks about him like, oh, I need to call someone, and then he has to try and find a payphone.
Yeah. Or like, so, you know, I got a fax, or I got a page, and I had to go call, I had to find a payphone to call that number. Like, that stuff doesn't happen anymore. We have everybody just at like, or when they're talking about doing, especially the romantic suspense ones, when they're talking about doing research or something, and they're like, I have to go to the library because like I don't own a computer. I can't just Google things off the, you know, off the wrist. Like I have to actually go have a librarian help me do legitimate research to figure something out. Like we don't get those sorts of things in books anymore. I think I just like it.
Yeah, it's fun.
It is. It always makes me think about getting rid of my cell phone and just having like a little flip phone to call people in emergencies. But then I realized I really need audiobooks. So I probably would not do well. My Goodreads challenge goals, they need audiobooks.
Yeah, same. That's been 90% of my reading this year. If it's not on audio, it's not happening.
Yeah.
I've been reading the same ebook for like a week and a half. Otherwise, I've gone through like 4 audiobooks. It's fine.
Yes. Yeah.
I
really
couldn't do it.
About it.
I couldn't do it.
I
and
don't
honestly, I
think
have no
that I
desire
could.
to. Your prime iPhone.
I have a strong. I have a strong desire, and I don't think that I could do it, and that makes me sad for me.
Yeah, I did it a few years back. I was still in New York, and something had happened with my phone. It like broke or something, and then I said, you know what? I'm not gonna get a new one, and I didn't get a new one for like 6 months.
Wow.
So, but then I had to.
Yeah.
It
just comes to a point where you have to have one.
Right. But actually, it was nice. It was nice because everybody's like, oh, well, did you, you should have seen this text. And I'm like, yeah, but it's nice not to have that pressure to like be on top of everything. So I enjoyed it actually.
No, I can't survive without a phone. The thought is just making me want to hyperventilate a little bit.
Oh, calm down. I'm just thinking about it. I'm not going to do it. I'm just thinking about it.
What would I do if I couldn't access...
For Suzanne, for sure.
If I can't access the Am I the Arsehole thread on Reddit, how am I meant to get through the day? I just don't understand. Like, it does not compute. So I was just trying to find, like, an old book, an old historical that I've read, and I cannot remember the name of it. The only thing I remember is that they accidentally get high because they're in a field of weed, and it gets burnt. And then here in Heroin, the first time they have sex is when they're high. And you only get this weird shit in these, like, vintage books.
Yeah.
It's just...
This is true.
It's just like, no one's ever written that before, like in a serious romance way, the way that this book did. And I can't remember the name of the book now. I'll need to find it, and when I find it, it's on my Goodreads shelf somewhere. We'll put it in the show notes in case you have any desire to read it. I'm not saying it's a great book. I can't, because the only thing I remember about it is the first time they have sex, they're accidentally high because a field of weed has just got burned or something. I can't remember now.
Did
But
you
it's
all
ridiculous,
read
and I love it.
the Lorraine Keith book, The Earl Takes All, the one where the brother dies and he pretends to be his brother?
No.
Oh,
Is
it's
it
not
a twin?
old. Yes, it was written in 2016. I mean, did I feel a little icky while I was reading it? Yes. Was it very good? Yes, also yes. But his brother dies. They're on like a safari together, and the brother that's married dies, and so they're twins, and he's like, my wife is pregnant, I need you to protect her. And so the alive twin pretends to be him and like help her through her pregnancy. And it is just like, you would think that it was written in 1988, and I just looked to make sure that I wasn't reading like a later edition of a book that was written. No, it was written in 2016.
Well, I'm
Nice.
just
Now
looking
I
at
kind
it.
of have to read that because
Yeah.
that sounds amazing.
It was
And
really good.
I personally love that trope of like, kind of like the brother's ex or, you know, the brother's widow kind of thing. Now, the fact that he's pretending to be him, I'm slightly icky,
The
but
fact
I'll
that she
definitely
doesn't
read
notice,
it.
though, is also weird.
Yeah.
Then
So-
it made me think about like, if my husband had a twin brother and he just came randomly, would I know what makes my husband my husband? Do you know?
I think
Would I
you
know
would.
them apart?
I feel like
I
you
would hope so.
would.
You
I
would.
feel like you would.
I would hope so.
But obviously, couples were different in the 18th century. It wasn't for
Yeah.
love, it was a contract. So maybe in that context, if they look similar,
Yeah, maybe.
you might not. On a similar vein, I'm sure there's a Lisa Kleypas book, or is it Julia Quinn, where her husband goes off and dies, but she's been writing letters to him, but somebody else gets those letters and basically falls in love with her through these letters and comes back and pretends to be her
Oh.
husband. But like he's like the perfect version of her husband because her husband was a bit of a twat. But he comes back and basically treats her like a queen, and like she falls in love with him, and it turns out it's not actually her husband. It must be a brother because they must look similar. But he'd been away in like India or something.
It sounds so familiar, but I don't remember.
I keep giving these vague description
who
of
it
books
was.
without the actual book. So I will look.
You're going to have a lot of homework to do.
I will look for that one as well. And I can't remember if that's Lisa Kleypas or Julia Quinn. I think it's one of those. I think it's more of Lisa Kleypas's bag than Julia Quinn.
I think that brings up a good segue-ish point, though, about Bridgerton.
Yeah.
And the way that I have not read the books. I've only seen the show. But I've heard a lot of people saying that the books were problematic in a lot of ways. And I think the TV show has reflected that a little bit. Like season 1, when Daphne and Simon are, you know, having sex, and she like basically forces him to almost impregnate her. Like those sorts of things.
In the book.
That
so
was
it
in the
was
book.
just,
Yeah, I've read all of the books. Yeah.
Yes.
That was in the...
Do you
I am
think that
surprised
they're-
they put that into the series, if I'm honest with you. But she'd written herself into a corner at that point in the book. Something had to give. But it wasn't something something big had to happen. Yeah.
And I feel like if we go into like problematic, because I also haven't read all of them, but I did recently read the book 4, which is Colin and Penelope's, just so that I would read it before the season. And I was just telling Suzanne the other day, I found personally that Colin would get really angry, and when he would get angry with Penelope, and he would get really angry and he would talk to her a certain way. Obviously, he didn't hit or anything.
No.
But he would put that on her in a way that I felt was, it took me off of the story. So I guess in a way, but there's definitely a lot more problematic things than the Bridgerton books.
We
for
forget
sure.
though.
I would say
They were published in 2000 to the first one, so they are like 24 years old.
Yeah. And the first one definitely would be the one that, because especially from that scene.
The first one's got the most glaring instance of holy shit, that's not okay. Yeah. I think what she was trying to do with Colin is show that he's a happy-go-lucky with everybody else and hide any negative feelings behind a mask. But with Penelope, he doesn't feel like he has to, but obviously then doesn't write very well when he's then, I trust her enough that I can be a complete twat, that kind of thing.
Twat, yeah.
So, but I have a feeling that might have been what she was trying to achieve.
Yeah. And some of that was his jealousy, because one of the things he wants to do is also publish his journals from his travels. So some of that was also jealousy, because he finds out that she's Lady Whistledown. And obviously she's popular and she's published and she's successful, and it's like eating at him. And I think that probably it could have been explored more. It could have been delve deeper into that topic of how he dealt with that and how they overcame that. And one thing that I have noticed in the books that I have read in the Bridgerton series is that there's a lot of these very serious topics that could make for really in-depth conversations and topics to explore, and they are always kind of glossed over because the books are more lighthearted. So they don't really go into them too much.
No. Wow, and the problematic thing as well, I was just thinking when you were talking then with book 4, when Romance in Mr. Bridgerton, so Penelope and Colin's book, is he gets really jealous and forces her to quit her career, which she then does. I mean, it was...
Like the moment he finds out in the book was like, he was such an asshole.
Yeah.
It was so aggravated. Like, no!
Because he was worried somebody would find out it was her, which at that point they hadn't. I don't know if we're giving spoilers away for what they're going to do in the series or not at this point, but...
People already know that she's Lady Whistledown in the story, because they reveal that way early. I mean, if you were reading the books, you wouldn't have known until book 4.
No, you have absolutely no idea it's her.
Nobody knows.
Tells you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So they've done some things differently. But
yeah, I feel like if she wrote Romance in Mr. Bridgerton now, that she probably would have stopped being Lady Whistledown, because the plot would have been somebody found out and it would have destroyed her. But I don't think Colin would have forced it in the way that he did. So,
well, I wonder if that will be reflected in the show then.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that is handled. But
I mean, I still like the book.
Yeah, really negging on it, but it is like...
I know.
It is, especially if you don't know the big revelation that it is her who was Lady Whistledown. Like, it's a genuine, like, oh my god, is she? Because you're like, you start to question it through the book, and then you're like, no, it's not Penelope. It can't be her. And then it's a really first time you read it and you don't know, which obviously a lot of people aren't going to get that experience now, but it was like genuinely like one of those moments.
I felt cheated out of that experience because I had already watched the show, so I said, "Oh my god, I would have enjoyed that, of like, discovering that with Colin."
I don't understand why they did it. I don't think they needed a hook for the second series. I think there was enough there that they didn't need to tell people.
I think they have a lot of sometimes like subplot lines that aren't necessarily needed, and I think that was kind of one of them, to the detriment of what could have been like a big surprise in season 3 or season 4 if they had actually followed like the books. But
true. Yeah, I think that would have been better.
Yeah, I still need to watch series 2. I've only watched series 1.
I wasn't a giant fan of season 2.
And the second book is so
amazing.
Good. It's genuinely a really good book.
My heart, which is why I haven't watched it.
My main complaint is that we only get literally like 5 minutes of married Kate and Anthony. And it is so annoying when like 90% of season 1 was married Daphne and Simon.
Yeah.
And we get it for like 5 minutes at the end of season 2. So that's why I'm hoping this season balances it better. Like, I don't need them to be married the whole season, but I don't want them married.
If it reflects the books, the marriage is kind of like halfway-ish in the book, and the same thing was with Daphne's book. So, and with Anthony's, it is towards the end. So I think they're almost mirroring that.
Yeah,
and that might be
you don't
why that happened.
That makes me feel, I just don't want them, I don't want their marriage to be like the last scene of the season.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think they could have done a little bit more also with Kate and Anthony.
Because they do get
But the
married
book's
in the
so
book
good.
because he's still yet to open up because he thinks he's going to die at 40. I don't know. Did they do that in the show? So in the book, it's a big thing that he doesn't think that he will live past the age that his father was when he died, which was 40, I think. He's like, I do want to marry and like produce an heir, but I don't want to fall in love because he believed with all his heart that he was going to die at 40. So
you know, he talked a lot about how he just wanted to get married for the like having an heir like of it all. He does say over and over like he doesn't need to be in love, he just needs the diamond of the season, like that's what he needs. But he doesn't ever go into specifics as to why.
Yeah.
He's just kind of given that plot line of like, you know, almost like, well, no, Simon was given more of like a backstory
it's quite poignant, the reasons why. He's the oldest and he was close to his father and his father was amazing, and he just, apparently it's a real thing as well that if like a parent dies young, there's this like weird irrational belief that you can't possibly live beyond that. And he truly believed it. So it gave him a real reason to be like, no, I really don't want to fall in love because I am going to die and I don't want to leave her and my family behind like my dad did. Like, it's really like moving. It's such a great book.
A pinch of that maybe, but it's not ever actually explained.
Yeah.
It just makes him seem like he's like the, you know, consummate bachelor. Like he doesn't actually need to be in love. That's just how they play it off. He is horribly frightened of bees the whole season. Like that pops up, but he doesn't actually explain his feelings about any of it.
Yeah, no, because Anthony's like really responsible. Like he's like the level-headed, responsible one, and that's just how he is. Like,
yeah, and he's not like that bachelor that's like, oh well, I just, you know, I don't need to be in love and whatever. Yeah. It's not transactional for him.
No, it's not that he doesn't believe in love. It's just
yeah. I agree.
They could have dug deeper.
No, I don't think I can watch the second series if they destroy my beautiful Anthony and Kate.
It's a good season. I think you should watch it just for the costumes and the music. If nothing else, they do great with the costumes and the music.
Yeah, they do.
I'm not very good with like remembering to watch TV, but I love the Bridgerton series. I am
going to start season 3 tonight.
Yeah.
Although there's only 4 episodes out, which like, okay, we waited 3 years to get 4 episodes, and now we have to wait a month to get the other 4.
I wonder if people will just wait and their viewing figures won't be very good.
I need Netflix to like stop doing that.
Yeah.
I just give me the whole season.
Wasn't they first started doing stuff like that with Game of Thrones? Way back when they used to split the series.
I don't remember. I don't think I watched that when it was
I didn't watch that, so I don't know. That's another series where I read the books, and I was happy just to having read the books to just leave it as it is.
And on the topic of books to movie or TV, do you have any that you've read that you would be excited to see if they made it into a TV show or a movie?
The Bourbon King series from J.R.
That
Ward.
would be fun.
If they made that for HBO, if they made that for HBO, that shit would slap.
Yes,
I agree. Yes, it would. You couldn't just do it on like ABC or something. Although, now tell me if I'm crazy about this.
Yes, you are.
No,
I think
totally right.
My husband thinks that I am, but did anybody watch Sons of Anarchy?
Yes.
Okay, so you know how when Sons of Anarchy was, they don't say the F word at all. Like there were obviously very certain curse words that they could not say on TV. If you have you seen the spin-off of that, the
The
Mayans?
Mayans. Yeah.
They're allowed to say fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every other word. And it even airs on live TV. Did you think that was shocking when you first heard it, or was it just me? Because I
mean,
was like, they're not allowed to do that on TV.
this is true. This is true. I think that it feels more authentic to the lifestyle.
It does.
The Mayans.
It does.
So it does have more of the, like, the other one felt more polished. And this one is like more gritty. So
Yes.
yeah, it definitely needs
Thank
to
you.
go where the
Thank
vibes
you.
are right.
So
and
that's what
I
I'm
think
saying.
for Bourbon Kings, yes, they would need that. They
Yes,
would
you
need that,
either need to be
100%.
on like FX where you can swear and you can have mild nudity, etc., or you need to be fully on like HBO or Netflix where they can do kind of whatever they want. But my biggest pet peeve is when they take those books or like they take a book and they make it into a movie or a series or whatever and they dumb it down for whatever reason, like after series, also trash, loved it. When they did the first movie, they made it like PG-13, and you're like, for what reason? It was very much the epitome of like a new adult romance, and they made it PG-13 for the movie. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're gonna do it, I want you to do it the way that the book and the author intended it to be. I don't need you to make it like appropriate viewing for people.
Well, it certainly
You
could
know?
sell more. That's a purely financial decision because more people can watch PG-13, so therefore more people will come and watch
Yes.
it. I would
But definitely, yeah, that you would not watch it.
I
I
would
know,
not watch
like.
it. I'm like, I don't care about rich people problems. Like, you know.
Oh, I do.
Oh, Joe, I just don't care. I've read the first book because, it's J.R. Ward, I had to try, but I just didn't care about
They are
any
so
of them. Like,
They're so good.
They're so good.
oh,
And they
no,
don't
I
get
can't.
wrecked like at all on Instagram or literally anything
Yeah.
else. So when people ask me for like what is a good book series to read that has, like X, Y, or Z, I'm like, the Bourbon Kings has something for everyone. Like it's a completed 3 books. You can read them real quick. It's not like it's a 40-book series. And they're engrossing. The writing is really good. They've got romance. They've got
drama.
mystery. Yeah. It's like all of it but wrapped. I'm constantly chasing the high that book series gave me.
They're the perfect soap opera.
They
like, if
are.
you love to watch like all the drama of reality TV, just
They are.
read that series. It's
Yes.
so good.
They're so
Especially
good.
the third one. I love the third one. It's so
They are
Yeah,
so
no.
good.
the sister.
If your taste
I'm
is
all-
more like
Sister's book.
mine, then don't read it. You won't like it.
I'm always chasing that high that series
Also,
gave me.
also her kind of romantic suspense one was it Consumed? I think.
Is that the
So
fire?
good.
Firefighter?
Fire
The
one.
Firefighter?
So good.
That was so good. That would also translate into a really good movie.
Yes, I got it as an arc, and I didn't realize how special I was at the time. And that book was so good. I went out and bought like a hardcover copy afterwards. It was so good.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one's good. Like that moment where the heroine's like literally cutting off her arm, and I'm like,
I love
Yes.
that people cut their own body parts.
it's so
That's
good.
problematic.
Hey, listen, she had to save herself.
Yeah.
It's
Just
so
an
good.
arm.
So good. Oh.
Oh my god! If you want high drama, that just go to a J.R. Ward book. I have not found another series or another book like the Bourbon Kings. Really,
Me either. Sometimes I will literally Google like book series like the Bourbon Kings. Like I'm constantly
case
trying to
something
find
new
something
pops up.
like it. Yes.
yeah. Have you read her other, like her older, like special? Hey, listen, we're talking vintage. Have you read her older, like '90s books as Jessica Bird?
No, I have them though. Like I specifically went out and bought them because I tried to start the Black Dagger Brotherhood and I read the first like 5
Completely
chapters,
different.
and I just wasn't feeling it the same. And so I was like, maybe I'm
no.
only interested in her contemporaries. I also tried to read her The Werewolf book series she tried to
Oh,
start. That
No,
book
no,
was
no, 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 no.
garbage. It was
yeah.
so, I literally was
It's
reading
so
it and I was like,
bad.
who wrote this?
No. Back away from that book. It's just, it will kill you. Like, it's not good.
Yes.
See, the high.
Suzanne and I
It
stopped
hurt me.
reading after we read Claim, which was the first in that series. We both of us didn't read for like almost a year.
Yeah, it honestly
It was that bad.
it was that bad.
Yeah.
It was so
See, the
bad. I
high
was
you
like,
described getting from the Bourbon King series is how I feel about her Black Dagger, the first 6, 7 books in her Black Dagger Brotherhood. Like,
I think it's because you didn't go far enough with the Black Dagger Brotherhood, because I can see how at the very beginning of Dark Lover, maybe that would happen because of, especially because she goes into the
oh, the
lesser's
lesser.
point of view also, which is really tedious. So try to like stick through one whole book
I'm going to
and
pick
see
it
how
back
you
up.
feel.
You
I
need
still
to
have
read
it. I'm gonna pick it back
Raven.
up.
Like
So Raven,
just know that with like the lessers, because she changes the points of view, there's gonna be certain parts of those books that you may want to skip, and it's fine.
just skim it.
You know, just skim those. It's fine. They're going nowhere. You're not missing too much. But like the core of like the romance and the vampire stuff, they're really good.
I'm going to
Yeah.
pick it back up.
But
feel
at the
similar.
very beginning, it's not yet like the brotherhood because they haven't really formed. So give it at like to the end of the book. See how
I
you
feel similarly about the Psy Changeling series. Like, I read the first one all the way through and I was like, this is good, but I don't see like why people are
Yeah.
obsessed with it. And then I had to DNF the second book because I was like, I just don't like,
What was the
I
second
don't
one? Visions of
feel
Heat, isn't
anything.
it? That,
Vaughn and Faith.
yeah. God, you
Vaughn
didn't
and
get to
Faith.
judge book. Crest my eyes, which is
I'm
The
gonna
third
keep
is so
going.
good.
I'm gonna keep going, but I was like, dang, I just don't understand. It always hurts when you read a book that's a series like that where everybody loves it. Like it is like a cult favorite book, and
Right.
you read it and you're like, did I miss something? Is there a part of me
that's what I feel
that
about Sarah
is
J. Maas.
broken?
I'm like, did I miss something? I don't get it.
You did miss something.
Oh, I don't think
you
I
did.
and Colleen Hoover as well. I'm like, I just don't get it. Don't get it. The only book of hers I've enjoyed is it Verity, which is
Oh, Verity's good. Yeah.
that was
book is
pretty
fucked
amazing.
up. Yeah.
But with Side Changeling, I think it's also because some of it, like if you're not deep into reading paranormal romance, it's like a heavier world and dynamics to get into. So maybe if like paranormal romance is not your normal, it might be a little heavier. Also, with some of these series, it kind of, in my opinion, it kind of takes more commitment. Like you have to stick through and read 1, 2, 3 books because that's kind of how it was for me. Some of these series, I started reading them. Maybe there were already 8 books out, and I just like read through all of them. So by the time you get to like book 3 and book 4, now like you start liking it. Whereas just reading books 1 or 2. Not so much, like even not romance, but The Hollows by Kim Harrison, which is urban fantasy. I almost DNF'd the first book. I went into the second book and I was like, all right, it's okay. The third book I really enjoyed. And then by the fourth book, I was like, okay, I really love it. And it's one of my favorites right now.
Oh
So,
yeah, I feel that way
you
about
kinda
Trisha
have to-
Briggs.
They kind of build on each other's stuff
Yeah,
like Sly Changeling. Like the world and the characters will grow throughout
Yeah,
as you
yeah.
get more involved.
I think
But,
depending
it's a
on who
heavy
the
commitment,
author
there's
is
a lot of
too.
books.
Yeah, I feel like depending on the author too, a lot of it is their writing style changing and evolving through the books too. You can see that with Sarah J. Maas a lot.
I'll never get it. I've tried a few of her books. I just don't get this weird like hero worship of her. I think they're all really average. The ones that I've managed to finish.
Ooh, which
It's like
series?
V. Schwab as well. Like I've read a few of her books and they're fine. They're just fine.
We'll agree to disagree.
Yeah, no, obviously that's fine. That's fine. I'm glad other people enjoy them.
I have no opinion. I didn't pick up one of her books.
What V. Schwab
Probably-
or Sarah J. Maas?
Sarah J. Maas. V.A. Schwab, I've read two of her books. One I liked, the Addie LaRue one, and the one with the darker shade of magic.
I've read The Darker Shade of Magic. Is that the one where there's two Londons, I think?
Yeah, yeah,
I've read that.
yeah.
And like I said, I liked it. It was fine. I haven't read any more.
Yeah, I felt that.
But-
I read that book too. I felt that way about it.
But yeah, but with Sarah J. Maas, I never had desire, and this is before she really blew up. I never had desire to, and then like I feel like when something gets that hype, I kind of like don't want to read it because I'm scared that I'm not gonna like it. I'm like, am I gonna like it? I also feel the same. Like I haven't read any of like the popular contemporaries like Emily Henry and like those kind of books.
Yeah, I
So-
haven't either.
Me neither, but that's just because contemporary. Some contemporaries are fine, but it's like with romantic suspense, even like the really good ones, like they're fine, but they just don't quite hook me as much as like a historical romance or an urban fantasy or like something with a weird alien penis. You know, that is what I want. Those are my
So it's
favorite.
always time for those.
Yeah, I mean, always. If it's weird, I kind of want it. I'm trying to think of some more like vintage authors. Have we talked about Judith McNaught? That's another one.
No,
like
we have not.
classic Loretta Chase as well.
Loretta Chase.
I mean, she's
yeah.
still going now, but like, oh my gosh, what's the really famous one?
Lord of Scoundrels.
Lord of Scoundrels. That's it.
Lord of Scoundrels,
Scoundrels,
yes.
yeah.
That book is so good.
Yeah. So that's. I'm trying to. When was that published? 1995. So you've
All
read
right.
that fairly recently, right? Francesca, did you read that?
I read that I think in 2019.
So would you say that one has got some problematic areas? Because I heard that it actually translated quite
I didn't
well.
think so.
from
I
other
didn't think
audiences,
so.
Yeah, I think it was quite ahead of its time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might have even given it 5 stars.
Jennifer Ashley, she's been writing for a while as well. I've read some of her older books and quite enjoyed them.
True.
She
True.
does Highlanders a lot, doesn't she? Yeah.
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 Well, her current series, she does a historical mystery, which I like as well. Yeah. So Cresley Cole, like she has got some old historicals with pirates,
Yeah.
which people should definitely read because they're
Yeah,
insane.
I have a few. Yeah, I have a few of them. I haven't read them yet, of course, but
She's
It's a
got
trilogy, I think, right?
that's the Scottish
Oh no,
one.
she's got other ones. Yeah,
She's
the
got
Scottish ones is a
Scottish
series.
one's
Yes.
a trilogy, and I think the pirate one is a duology, like the Sutherland brothers or something like that.
Oh, I need to read. I've come out of this episode with like a long list of things to
Yeah.
read.
Do you know what they're like? They're like the Immortals after. They're exactly like the Immortals After Dark.
But they're
Heroes and
I love it.
heroines, but they're not Immortals After Dark. They're just like pirates,
regular
and
people.
ladies and whatever. Like it's amazing. It's got that energy. It's got that IAD energy though, which I really appreciate in a sexy Scottish Highlander. If I'm honest.
Definitely need to read those. I guess for contemporaries, there's also the classic contemporaries like Rachel Gibson.
What is it? Susan Elizabeth Phillips?
Oh, Susan Elizabeth.
Yes, Susan Elizabeth Phillips.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's some older ones.
Heaven, Texas, one of my favourite contemporary romances, is by Susan Elizabeth Phillips. So funny.
Wasn't there
Is there a
one by her
couple-
that has like a circus?
Circus. Yes.
What's it
Oh,
called?
I'm sure it's the character's called Daisy, which I realised doesn't help. I'm sure that the heroine's name's Daisy.
Daisy in a circus. We'll find this.
Yeah. I might not. That also might be wrong as well. Just bear that in mind.
Kiss an angel. Kiss an angel.
Is the heroine called Daisy?
I'm going to tell you in a second.
Let's test my.
Yes.
Yay!
Yes, it is.
I can't remember the title of the book, but I remember that her name is Daisy.
So which ones are you looking forward to reading maybe this summer? What's on your TBR?
Mine, I have no idea. I kind of want to read the Anne Stewart Black Ice now, so I
yeah.
might
You
make
should.
an effort to source it and read it. Yeah, because I do like Anne Stewart and I like her vibes. I don't think I've ever read any of her contemporary stuff. I think one of her most popular ones would be a great place to start. I do now want to read some Amanda Quick, some of her old like historical mystery magic ones, because they're always really cool. So I might
Yeah,
try and
they're
pick some
fun.
of those up. because I haven't read all of them. So
I'm definitely gonna put on my TBR that twin brother.
Oh,
Was
the Earl
it
Takes
Lorraine
All.
Heath? Yeah, Lorraine
Yeah.
Heath. I'm definitely reading that one.
That was a good one.
yeah.
I
I'll look
want
up
to
the other
read.
one I was talking about, and you can read that one too. I'm fairly certain it's the same person.
Yes. Give me all the weird
Yeah.
books.
I want to read some more Linda Howard. I have a Carlene Thompson book that I want to read. She's also pretty little known. And then I really want to read Karen Slaughter. I've never read any of her books, and I've had Blindsided on my Kindle for like 6 years. So I feel like now is the time to do it. So I'm really leaning into all the 80s and 90s like romantic suspense.
Yeah.
I read Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. It was so good.
I've
Really
heard-
creepy.
Yeah, I've heard great and horrible things about her.
I'm trying to think who would be like kind of like her. If you like the romantic thrillers, and this is maybe not so old, but I guess so. Shiloh Walker has some really good romantic thrillers. There's a trilogy.
Yeah.
There's a trilogy that's really good. I think it's like the If You See Her trilogy. I don't remember the name of the trilogy, but the book's like if you see her, if you hear her, and if you something else. Those are really good. And it's solving a mystery throughout all three books. And then she also has a standalone that's really, really creepy and really good. I think it's called Stolen. I feel like she's always been kind of like underappreciated, but like she really used to write some amazing romantic thrillers.
If you want something slightly strange but really cool, the Associate series by Carolyn Crane is really good. That's romantic suspense. She now writes as Annika Martin more than she does as Carolyn Crane, but the Associate series by Carolyn Crane is really cool. I really love that series.
More pen names. Everybody's got a pen name.
Yeah.
So I think there's quite a bit of recommendations here. I know I have a full list of books that I want to go read now.
Me too.
We will put the books that we've mentioned somewhere for you to find, either linked in the description or actually in the description of this podcast episode. But we hope you found something that you might enjoy. Go in there knowing that this is gonna be weird. If you're used to only reading modern authors, or modern titles from authors rather, but it's interesting, if nothing else, just to see how the genre has grown over time to reflect people's social mores, even in historical romance, which is a little bit insane. But yeah, there will be something in that you will enjoy. And I will look up the titles of the two books that I spoke about and describe them, but cannot tell you what book they are. I will find them. But yeah, so thank you very much for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to find Francesca and I, we're on underthecoversbookblog.com, or you can find us on Instagram at UTC Bookblog. And where can we find you, Cheyenne?
I am on Instagram at Read with Shy, Chey. I don't post very often anymore, but I'm in stories literally every day. So.
And Francesca, what did I miss out when I was promoting us? I'm sure I missed something.
No, nothing.
No?
That's about it.
So anyway, guys, thanks for listening to us like waffle on. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Yeah.